with a capital B, I'm Barry. Built for tough, taking over the world just ain't enough. I gotta go fast, be fast, rise and grind. Better be there, be square, buff and shine, yo.
If you're gonna hit me, you had better hit me hard. Let's try something different. We hit the auto, gotti, gelato. Put it on auto, talking gotti, gelato. Next up, outro, just a spendy up, bendy mulatto. We hit the auto, gotti, gelato.
Back again after I went to work. If you can't tell, I make the beats that make the bitches twerk. I go blow to blow, I go toe to toe. While you're seeing red, I see indigo. We take two to the chest and one to the nose. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, bro.
Think I need a couple hoes, they say the more the merry. I know I never do those drugs, but right now I'm with Barry. And I'm very well aware I shouldn't fuck her if she married. But life is just a dream, so I'ma fuck her like a fairy. And I spin that shit like right around, no ring around the rosy. Ain't no way she scream my name, I bet her neighbors fucking know me. All these drugs inside my system, tell the police fucking blow me. And the way we ran this shit, you think he's Shaq and I was Kobe, but shut up and listen, I don't wanna talk. Me and the money, we tying a knot. I keep on telling these bitches I'm never gonna leave them. I guess I'll be lying a lot. Tell me the shit that you do for the plot. Me and that hoe, we been through it a lot. I keep on smoking on something that's sticky, ain't never gonna stop.
We hit the lotto, the gotti, gelato. Put it on auto, talking gotti, gelato. Next up, that outro, just a spendy up, bendy mulatto. We hit the auto, gotti, gelato. Gotti, gelato. Gotti, gelato. Bendy mulatto.
Gotti, gelato. Did that go? Did that record?
Na 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 na.
Turn around, I catch it back, last to the track, all lined up like reeds of whack. We gon' make it rain, we ain't built the same. I got one ID called the Hall of Fame, but I'm hung like a coat. Well, I'll give you the rope, do it those seeds, I'll go outside and smoke. Go work the grill, go money for the kill, like $1 bill, still a happy meal,
Bitch, we got the fire 'cause you wanted that smoke. I am the keeper and the seeker and the bringer of dope. I am the saying, best be paying, best be laying it low. Got a cosmic superstition and the laminate flow.
Dum 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 dum. We drinking water while the perkies make them numb. We drinking la 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 la. We hate it raw, rat tat 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 ta. Nah.
Back again, cause I'm dope as fuck. Back again, we don't need no luck. Need my crown, cause they know I'm a king. Where's your bitch, cause I'm taking a queen. Never stop with a notion. Stand back and watch me make motion. Stand by for the killer flow shit. Spell out Mississippi with the KIO shit. I did drugs I shouldn't do. I made money, how about you? I like my girls 2x2. Paper, double you now what it do? I'm breaking through. I'll see you soon.
Bitches mix with Molly, I made money off a Gotti. I put lyrics on my yachty, Maserati with the hottie. Body, put tequila in my shawty. Pull the logo off the Benz, we crashing Maserati.
These bitches blah 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 blah.
Okay.
Mississippi, pushing, looking on the TV. Goddamn, that bitch, we going ham. I host the party, Mr. Mighty, found the name of Bacardi. I stuck a car in the door, but he drove it retarded. I want ice, 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 I want ice.
Whistle sister.
Fuck.
Whistle.
with the fucking hate.
Nah. Barry, something like
Go faster.
Think about the money, all the money that I'm making. If you look at some hand and see the drugs that I've been taking, you don't wanna fuck around and be a victim of the mess. You don't wanna fuck around and be the one that I ain't taking. Always never know the difference. You ain't never wanna notice. On a mission with the mission, I'm a man in the corner. Gonna miss you when it hit you like an alley. You've been on your back, waiting for a board. Gonna learn this Saratoga, that's some real shit. Don't say you didn't feel this. You know Calvin the illest. And I don't have to count because my thumb know what the mill is. Don't need 2 cents. Write the check, let me see one if.
Iced out. Check the wrist. Check the wrist. Iced out.
Knock the fuck out.
Dude, honestly though, who gave bad data permission to make a banger, bro? What the fuck? That was awesome. All right, hold up. Hold on. Okay, let me flippity flip. So this is what we're gonna do today. This is one of my longest YouTube friends of all time. Dire Trip. God, he's already at almost 600k. That's fucking crazy, honestly. I remember the days when he had hit 100,000 subscribers. Oh god, I don't want to hear my own voice. Fucking atrocious, honestly. Okay, hold on. Let me mute. There we go. That's what. Please mute. Thank you. Hi, after show. Hi, Joe from the grave. Hi, holy clown fuckers. Love you all, love you all, love you all. Hope you're all well. Like, share, stream, all that good stuff. We're obviously gonna play some Fortnite, because why not? And yeah, we're gonna watch some true crime. I'm gonna try to do these on Tuesdays and Thursdays, because yeah, obviously not so late, typically. Am I good? I'm great. I'm Gucci. I'm Gucci Mane. I accomplished things today, and I feel super hyped for it. So we'll just start with the one that just came out. I'm curious. What's the famous child actor who suspiciously vanished? I'm curious. We could probably do both. Let's do the child actor one first, and then see how I feel about it. Kids! Nothing like kids and murder, bro. Literally. And then Fox, if you're listening, I promise I'm coming. Give me a second. Okay. Everything, do I sound good? I'm hoping I sound good. My shit's been super wacky lately for some fucking reason. And then if it counts for anything, I have permission from Dire Trip to watch these. Like I said, we've been friends for fucking ever, so asking him is not the worst of all things. But I'm super hyped to watch his content, because honestly, I'm like so behind on my true crime content, it's disgusting. It's quite disgusting. I even started listening to the last podcast again, if that says anything. So, hyped about that. Am I just gonna full screen it? I kind of like leaving the thing in so you can see the bottom. But then the sides get all weird. Oh well, that's fine. Let's do it.
When a child actor got a lot of starring roles on shows like Touch Mine Angel and in movies like Beethoven, people assumed that he would make it big one day. However, that day wouldn't come, and it wouldn't be because of failure. It would be because he vanished.
Hell yeah, bro. Support him on Patreon.
Oftentimes, we hear about what happens to childhood actors once they get older, and usually it involves drugs, alcohol, scandals, or failure of some sort. But how often is it really that one of them simply vanishes off of the face of the earth with nothing but success on their resume and no scandals whatsoever under their belt? This is one of those rare cases. This is the story of Joseph David Wolfgang Pichler. Joe was born on Valentine's Day, February 14th, back in 1987 in Bremerton, Washington. He was the fourth of 5 children, but he wanted to be a little different. He wanted to be a child actor. Setting out to do just that, he immediately had some success. After doing some auditions, he got roles in about 6 videos and commercials nearby in Seattle. Given that things were looking pretty promising, his family decided to look into the next step. In support of this endeavor, his parents decided to move out with him to Los Angeles to see how an acting career might play out. It wasn't too long before he got some very 90s gigs, such as guest starring on an episode of Touched by an Angel in 1998. He also got a role in Music from Another Room and Varsity Blues, playing James Vanderbeek's on-screen brother. Joe's most well-known roles in any movies would come to be in the Beethoven series. Beethoven was one of the many pet movies of the 90s, featuring a happy family with some sort of sometimes talking animal as the main draw. Beethoven was about a St. Bernard puppy that quickly grew into a massive dog and caused a lot of comedic strain on his family. Joe got his role in both the third and fourth movie in the series in 2000 and...
This shit is so fucking loud, it's killing my ears. Hold on. How do I do this again? Do I just press this? Oh, my bad. Okay, there we go.
2001, playing Brennan, one of the main characters in the movie. Joe was treated well enough that he even got his own trailer while working on these movies, but it didn't really go to his head. The people who talked to him said that he was pretty grounded, not really taking things to an excess. In an interview with the media, speaking about the roles he wanted, Joe said, "I've said no to sex and drugs. I don't want to get typecast. I'd much rather do movies than TV. I like the whole atmosphere of changing characters and meeting new people." Even though Joe was only 14 years old by this point, he had already been acting in various roles for 10 years. He debated on playing in serious or comedic roles, but felt that serious movies might give him a better chance of getting an Oscar one day. However, Joe's career wouldn't go on much longer. His last appearance in a film would be in 2002 in an independent drama called Children on Their Birthdays. After that point, Joe's life would change fairly dramatically. Joe's family, especially his mother Kathy, started to feel like he eventually deserved a regular childhood at some point. She wanted him to experience going to school, getting some friends, having a part-time job, and really just having his own coming-of-age moments rather than simply acting them out for movies. Joe wasn't really happy with it, but he agreed to do it regardless. He packed up, took a break from working in Hollywood, and went back home to live with his family in Bremerton. Kathy later said, "I just wanted him to have some normalcy in his life. He's a good boy and took it well, but he wasn't really happy about it." After having only lived as a child actor up until this point, Joe abruptly began to live just like any other teenager. He went to high school, got braces, and made some friends, all while staying out of the limelight. This all continued until he graduated from Bremerton High School in 2005. For the time being, he accepted a job as a telephone technician at a company called Teletech nearby. Joe still wanted to go back to Hollywood. In fact, he said that he was only waiting a year for his braces to come off before heading back out. Around this time, when he turned 18, he got a pretty significant amount of money from a trust fund. This gave him a bit of extra funds to move out. He got his own place across town from where his parents, his older sister Samantha, and his younger brother Matthew lived. He still came out to see them pretty regularly, though. Joe lived life pretty much like any other 18-year-old with their own place. He started to experiment with drugs and alcohol from time to time, but he never really did go into an excess due to wanting to get back into acting at some point. He ate a bunch of Mexican food, hung out at Jack in the Box, and played with his pet guinea pig. All seemed pretty normal. But it was anything but that. Along came the day of January 5th, 2006. This would be the last time anyone would ever hear from Joe. Joe spent the whole night playing cards with a friend, but this friend eventually went home. All was quiet until about 4:15 a.m. Joe called his friend, obviously very drunk and very upset about something. This friend said that Joe was on his cell phone, sobbing, drinking, and sounding fairly incoherent. It seems that either this friend couldn't gather exactly what he was upset about or has kept it to himself over the years. It was evident that Joe had noticed he was having a meltdown. He started to calm down and promised his friend that he would call him back in about an hour. He never did, though. It seems word got back to Joe's family as his mother Kathy decided it would be best to send her other son Matthew to go check on Joe and make sure everything was alright. Matthew went over to Joe's place only to find his apartment completely unlocked with all the lights left on, something very out of character for Joe to do. Matthew waited an hour for Joe to come back, hoping that he had merely stepped out for a moment and would be back at any time now. After a while, it started to become more and more evident that this was not the case. The whole situation was odd enough that Kathy came out to check for herself that evening, seeing the same peculiar scene that her son did. Not only was the apartment left open, but Joe was also a pretty avid collector of Magic the Gathering cards. His card books were left open, and it was clear that the particularly valuable ones were missing. It was around this time that they realized that time was of the essence and they needed to report Joe missing. They worried if some sort of foul play may have taken place, given the strange way that his apartment had been left open. A few days came and went without any news. Joe never contacted anyone again, never came back to his place, and never showed up back in Hollywood. That is, until the police made a discovery. They found Joe's abandoned car near a body of water in a place called Port Madison Narrows, which also seems to be called Port Madison Bay. It's an area on the western shore of Puget Sound in western Washington. Joe's silver 2005 Toyota Corolla was found on January 9th, 4 days after he had gone missing. It was near the intersection of Wheaton Way and Sheridan Road in Bremerton. It seemed that all of his belongings were still in the car, including the cell phone that he had last used to call his friend.
This gives you
The only things missing were his wallet and his car keys. It's notable that his missing magic cards were nowhere to be found either. The police came across a strange, ominous-sounding note within his car.
Oh shit.
The note consisted of poetry, but also contained a note saying that he wanted his younger brother, Matthew, to have his belongings.
Alright, let's fucking go, dude.
While this reads like he might have intended on ending his life at first, the note also ended with Joe saying that he wanted to become a stronger brother for the sake of his siblings and that he wanted to start all over, making everything all the more confusing. The police themselves felt that the whole situation was fairly cut and dry. They assumed that Joe had ended his life by jumping off of the bridge and into the Port Madison Narrows. However, when they brought out some search dogs, none of them traced his scent over to any of the areas where one could jump off. His family added that they didn't feel he was suffering from depression or any sort of dark idealism.
Dude, this guy's so swagged out though. Look at that fucking shirt. It's got moose on his shirt? That's sick. I want a moose shirt.
To them, he never showed any signs of having mental health problems and often spoke optimistically of getting back into acting very soon. They were much more concerned that he had met with foul play of some sort. Joe's family told the police of what they had found previously, the unlocked apartment with the lights on and the missing valuables. The police didn't really have much to tell them, still feeling that all the signs pointed to Joe having ended his own life. A detective even called Kathy and told her as such. But they never did find a body, and the scent dogs weren't able to trace where he might have gone. Even so, the police detective told Kathy, "I don't know how to say this to you without sounding really bad, but basically I think your son's dead, and it could take months for him to show up in the water." Days came and went, and this soon turned into weeks. 2 weeks after Joe originally went missing, his family did an interview with the media. His sister felt that he was still alive, feeling that he might now be too embarrassed to come home due to the way in which he left. She said, "He's probably too embarrassed to come home." Joe's younger brother Matthew, who first ventured out to his apartment, said, "In the worst case scenario, if anything, it's foul play, but not suicide. He left that note saying he wanted to start over." Kathy herself felt, or possibly hoped, that Joe was still alive as well. She said, "There was no goodbye," as she spoke of the note he left behind. Contradicting their previous statements, the police came out to say that they weren't entirely sold on the idea that Joe had ended his own life, saying they were actually considering a wide array of possible scenarios that could have led to his disappearance.
It was Hollywood.
The Bremerton police detective Robbie Davis, though, said that he didn't believe Joe met with foul play, saying, "I have not found one person that has said anything bad about Joe."
Ooh, hey.
Hundreds of people came out from Bremerton and the surrounding areas to help search for Joe, but in the end, they didn't turn up even a single clue as to where he might have gone. Joe's family really started to get frustrated and lose hope as time went on, and they came to get a little irritated with the police, feeling they weren't really doing all that they could to help find their son. Kathy told the media, "They haven't fingerprinted his car. They sifted through it. They were in his apartment for about 3 minutes. They've done nothing."
There was a black glove sitting on the ground next to the driver door. We never did grab it. We didn't think anything of it to grab it.
Joe's family has even come to say that vomit was found in the back seat of Joe's car, but the police neglected to ever mention it, test it, or really do anything about it. And as it seems, there wasn't much more the police would or could do at this point. While it had already been weeks since Joe had gone missing, those weeks would turn into months, and those months would turn into years. All the while, not a single trace of Joe would ever come to surface. His body was never found, despite all of the other bodies of people who had jumped into the Narrows, usually coming to wash up on the shore somewhere down the line, leading many people who were on the side of Joe ending his life to wonder if he really wasn't dead at all.
He's not dead.
The problem is, there never has been one single clue otherwise. This left people with nothing to do but come up with their own theories as to what might have happened. One theory was that Joe did jump off the bridge and end his own life after all. However, people have a hard time coming up with a reason for it. If he really wasn't depressed and did have optimism about returning to Hollywood, it wouldn't make sense to end things now. He had no breakups, no legal trouble, no career-ending scandals, or anything else that might factor in either. But he did call his friends sobbing on the morning he went missing, which means he must have been upset about something at the least. Some have theorized that he was simply deeply unhappy since having to move back to his hometown and hit it well, or maybe felt like he wouldn't be able to land another acting job after being out of the game for so long.
Honestly,
Of course, none of this can be confirmed, though. Another theory was that Joe did meet with foul play. However, like the previous theory, this one also has holes. Mainly, Joe didn't have any enemies, and there has never been a clue pointing towards foul play, only suspicions that it may have been a possibility. The only things that might point to this theory would be the missing magic cards and the vomit being found in the back seat of his car. The last theory is that Joe is still alive out there and simply doesn't want to be found. Some people believe this theory due to the fact that Joe left behind the note specifically stating that he wanted to start over and become a stronger brother. However, if he really did want to start over, wouldn't it be in the acting world that he wanted to return to so badly? It didn't seem like there was any reason for Joe to consider himself to be so weak, and most of all, it seems like someone really would have seen him in all of these years. Sadly, there have been no developments whatsoever since Joe went missing back in 2006. Years after the fact, his family are still searching for him. They still speak to the media from time to time, and they have even uploaded videos to YouTube in order to hopefully assist with the search. Joe's sister, Shauna, has said, "I know somebody knows something. People say it gets easier with time. I guess that's true when you know where the person is. The worst feeling out of all of this is the alone feeling. After time goes by, the press stops, people move on. But for us, it doesn't stop, it just keeps going." Joe's mother, Kathy, has also continued to express her frustration with the Bremerton police, still believing that they didn't do enough to find out what happened to her son when the scene was still fresh. In 2011, she wrote this on the Surviving Parents Coalition website. "My son, Joseph Pichler, went missing 5.5 years ago. His case was handled so poorly by police and most of the evidence was lost. Their mistakes were because local police didn't know the correct procedures for missing children/persons. Joseph is not a runaway. That's the only thing I know for sure about his disappearance. After nearly 6 years, we still have no resolution. I also struggle to get through each day without answers as to the whereabouts of my missing son." Just recently, the 25th anniversary of the release of Varsity Blues really brought this whole missing persons case back into the spotlight, as many fans were shocked to hear that the younger brother in the movie had been missing for years. It led to fans trying to track him down, hoping to maybe find him if he really was still out there somewhere. But as of this point at least, they haven't had any luck.
Dude, am I retarded?
Joe would be about 37 years old now. His family is still looking for him, hoping that one day they might find him out there somewhere. Various organizations have published age progression photos of what he may look like and posted them online. Joe is still missing, and it very well may stay that way. This case will likely be remembered as one of the strangest outcomes for a child actor that we have ever seen. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Just recently, I have started a podcast with 4 of my friends called the NBR Podcast. If you find this channel interesting, I think you might like that one too as well. I've also opened up a merch store recently where you can get yourself some Dire Trip t-shirts, link in the description below. If you want, go ahead and follow me on social media, as if anything were to ever happen to this channel, that would probably be the only way you'd ever hear about it. I also really appreciate when people support me on Patreon. There you can get videos early, ad-free, and uncensored.
Seriously, support
Channel memberships are back up too, and you can get the same benefits there as well. So, this has been your host Kyle. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, Kyle. Oh shit, I just fell from like the top. How did I even do that? Literally, I just want you to die. No, please. Dude, what the fuck? Dude, how the... Dude, seriously? I just got knocked on my ass for no reason. That's fucked up. Okay, I'm gonna potty real quick. Hold on, y'all. Dude, wrecked. Both of us just got wrecked for no reason. Hold on. Kyle, hold on.
When
I'm gonna pee really bad.
Tim, Tim's all up and you know that I'm him. I'm doing tricks for the biscuit while you're biting the rim. Hey engineer over here, I think something's tweaking. Got you listening before I started peeking. Wise man said choose a battle today. I said that because I'm doing it my goddamn way. Just a sinner making dinner and the songs my souffle. You couldn't cook it like I cook it every goddamn day. I said give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. I said give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. I said give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. I said give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. I think I can hit it, just a minute, just a minute. What's it take to go the distance? I've been bringing every limit. Where the time go? Think I lost my mind, no. Thinking something's coming, think it's about to be a grind, yo, yo, yo. Go, I can do a lot. Go, watch it go. Music really hot. Let's try, why don't you give it a shot? Become the ops for the cops, you all be missing a lot. They choking on it, they hating on it, they claim I'll be mistaken on it. I've come to mark my theory, till the king, my name is Barry. I'm so phenomenal, astronomical, platty with the fat that I'm gonna rip it in a dipping like the Viet Cong go, smoking every session like the Viet Cong go. Okay, I am making the way. Shout out Tyler, cause I'm higher, flower boy every day. When I go missing from the distance, check the CIA. They go M-I-N-U-T-E in my DNA, yo. Give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. I said give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. I said give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. I said give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. I think I can hit it, just a minute, just a minute. What's it take to go the distance? I've been bringing every limit. Where the time go? Think I lost my mind, no. Thinking something's coming, think it's about to be a grind, yo, yo, yo. Give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. I said give me just a minute, just a minute, just a minute.
a loving, cheerful, religious father of
Alright, I'm back. Oh, God. Ow. I'm gonna watch this one. Let's go.
religious father of 10 kids decided to adopt 5 more, things weren't really going to go as smoothly as he had hoped. With the kids' original parents becoming more and more of a problem, he felt that he had no choice but to turn to the dark web to deal with this growing problem.
Let's go.
This is the story of a very smart and well put together family called the Pences. However, as good as they had things and as smart as they seemed to be, they were actually fairly naive when it came to many other areas of life. This would definitely come back to bite them later, but for now let's start back at the beginning with who they are and how they met.
Damn.
Christopher Pence met his future wife, Michelle, when they were teenagers living near Seattle. It wasn't long before the two got married in 1999, when Christopher was 19 and Michelle was 20. In just 1 year, the couple came to have 2 twin girls together. They both continued to fire out babies fairly rapidly until they ended up with 4 kids, after which Christopher decided it was time to get a snip and had a vasectomy. Christopher's dream was to get a career working in the finance industry, hit it big, and live in a nice house in downtown Seattle. If Michelle ended up with her own well-paying job, it would be even easier, they thought. He got a stockbroker's license and got several rental properties.
So I had some fairly outrageous dreams about my future while in school. I was convinced that once I was finally able to get out of school, that I would work as one of the top investment bankers on Wall Street, own several skyscrapers in downtown Seattle that would be leased out, and own a nice penthouse in the city where my wife and myself and maybe 1 or 2 children would live. God has a sense of humor.
With this grind, though, he was very unhappy. Christopher started to fall into a bit of a personal crisis. He had always been raised in religion, but he hadn't been taking it too seriously. Now he had some big questions about life that he felt he couldn't answer on his own. This sent him back to religion to search for answers, which brought a huge change to both he and his family's lives.
At various points along this path, God changed my thinking about how a man is to be the leader of his family, and how children are actually blessings and rewards.
Christopher started focusing much less on his career and more on church, feeling that he must have some sort of higher calling. In a speech at his church, he said, "There are many biblical examples about how our dreams may not be what God wants for us. Job did not want his children to die, or his storehouses to be destroyed, or his health to be impaired, but God's perfect will allowed this to happen. Jeremiah wanted to marry a nice girl and have a family, but instead God used him as a prophet of death." Christopher, feeling that he had gone against his calling, went back to the clinic and got his vasectomy reversed not too long after getting it done in the first place. Michelle was raised very much the same way as Chris and was more than ready to get back into the swing of things herself. She started reading books on what it meant to be a woman and came to her own conclusions. She said, "I entered marriage thinking of it as an equal partnership, knowing but not understanding what it meant that my husband is my head. I had no idea of the importance of my role as a mother and the significance God placed on motherhood. I had no idea that God called barrenness a curse and children the greatest blessing he can bestow. I had no idea that God said so much about children in the Bible. They are heritage, a reward." And boy oh boy, they practiced what they preached. By 2017, Chris and Michelle had 10 children in total. This was in addition to a few failed pregnancies, 1 child who didn't make it, and many more attempts. The family started to need more space, a lot of it, so they moved out to live with Chris's parents in a rural area about 25 miles north of Seattle. They turned the home into somewhat of a self-sufficient little area with cows, chickens, beehives, and a lot of vegetables. There were so many people in this family that they had to go to church on Sunday in a bus.
You mark? There we go.
The doctors actually advised Michelle to stop having kids, but she really scoffed at the idea. One of her children was born with cerebral palsy, which caused a social worker to wonder if she really had the time or the ability to homeschool children with such a condition. But even so, she wanted to raise the kids entirely herself in order to focus in on their studies from a more Christian lens.
Yay.
She felt that she couldn't have done any better than Chris, calling him the handsome man that makes it all happen, saying that he was a perfect example of a man who loved his wife just as he was supposed to. By now, he was working at Microsoft, making quite a bit of money and allowing his family to live as they wanted. Chris really did seem to be a harmless guy. He had no criminal record whatsoever and was never known to be violent. The guy would come home from work and listen to Christian rock while helping his wife out with the kids. They invited people from church over to their house on Sunday afternoons, and nobody ever suspected anything could be going on behind the scenes. For now, nothing was. But things would all change when the family decided that they wanted some more kids. One day, Chris and Michelle would decide that adoption was going to be their next challenge. However, they didn't really know the best way to go about it. They started working with more traditional adoption agencies, went through hours and hours of training, took psychological evaluations, and talked to numerous social workers. The problem was, the two wanted to adopt 5 children. Given the already massive size of their family, there weren't any agencies that were willing to go along with that. So after about 2 more years of having no luck, they simply placed an ad online in a homeschooling-related forum that Michelle frequented. The ad read as, "We would like to adopt a child who is less than 11 years old. We are open to boys or girls. We feel we can accommodate a sibling group of up to 5 kids. Almost any ethnic background will blend in with our family. We are open to children with many special needs. We do not mind having contact with the child's biological parents, by email or by phone or by mail or in person, provided the parent was/is not abusive to the child." This ad caught the attention of a woman named Christina Cordero, who was facing some problems in her own house. She had come to learn that her husband was propositioning other women and felt that her kids were no longer safe around him. The husband himself had told the police that his sexual behavior was a continuous struggle with his family, having been caught with child material and even showing that material to other children. Their family had downsized from a home down to an RV. The oldest child was developmentally disabled and they couldn't find a place to live. She came to Chris and said, frankly, that her kids were not safe with her and they needed somewhere to go. By coincidence, Chris and Michelle were actually on a 6-week cross-country trip after Michelle once again gave birth and Chris was allowed to go on paternity leave. The two were in a motorhome, crossing through Massachusetts when getting the message from Christina, who was living in a place called Hoosick Falls, not all too far away. Michelle felt that this might have been their calling, as she herself came from a broken family with an absent father. So they drove out to Hoosick Falls and decided to pray with the family. Chris and Michelle took some time to deliberate on the whole thing, promising to come back later. And that they did. In just a few days, they turned around on their trip and came back, deciding to go through with the whole arrangement. After a few months, they nailed down a deal. Christina would keep her child with special needs, while all of the other 5 would go on to become adopted by the Pences. They took all of the new kids into their RV and headed home. Christopher later said himself, "We got to Massachusetts with 10 children and left there with 15. Immediately, not all was well. They actually hadn't legally adopted the kids. While Christopher liked to think of these 5 kids, aged 1 to 9, as his new kids, they weren't going to take to him so easily. When asked by someone if they were all one big family, one of the Pence daughters excitedly said yes, while one of the newly adopted kids said, "No, there's 10 of them and 5 of us, and they took us from our parents in Massachusetts." Michelle wrote online about how hard the newfound disharmony in her home was and spoke of what she called meltdowns of epic proportions. She said, "Never have we seen anyone give an eye roll before this experience, not to mention the screeching, yelling, and whining that accompanies all of the above." Now that their family had gotten even bigger, they had to move all over again, this time heading south to Hawkins, Texas. They bought a house for $329,000 in June of 2019, making this their new home base. During this time, the family was actually under investigation, with at least 2 welfare checks being done on the unhappy adopted children. Eventually, the family was told that the DCF would be taking custody of the adopted children and bringing them back to Massachusetts, where they would likely go into foster care. So, both the Pences and Christina decided to make the adoption permanent, the right way on paper. Christopher, Michelle, and all 15 of the kids were photographed smiling together behind a court bench. Christina and her husband came out to visit the kids 3 times, one of those times being at the Texas home. They then decided to move out to Texas as well. However, Christopher and Michelle weren't really comfortable with this. After all, they had adopted the kids. They felt that Christina was simply using
that's
them
right,
to
bitch.
hide her
Use
kids
my
from the
cock.
Massachusetts child welfare system and have their
Butthole.
ways
You
paid.
suck. I
Christina
will-
and her husband even asked that they could
Gay,
park
gay,
their
gay,
RV
gay,
on the
gay,
Pence's
gay,
property,
gay.
which they refused. This made dealing with the new kids more difficult as well, with at least one of them very excited that their parents were going to be living nearby. The Pences said, this was a little challenging to work through, that no, even though your birth parents are in Texas, they can't come over anytime they like to, because we need to maintain structure and order to family life. To add insult to injury, Christina got pregnant again after having just given up the 5 kids for adoption. This hurt the older kids, who understood it better, the most in particular. The Pences were already fed up and ready to leave Texas. Not only because of Christina, but because they just didn't like the land. So they found a place in Utah that they purchased for $659,000 in November of 2020. This time they didn't share their new address with Christina, instead giving her a P.O. box to send mail to. When arriving to their new church, Chris opened up to their new pastor about their problems, saying that Christina and her husband were really causing problems for the kids. One of the adopted kids had even come back from meeting with their original parents with bruises from being held down too roughly. This pastor then introduced Christopher to his attorney. The whole ongoing dispute between the two families only continued to escalate. Christina now wanted to regain custody of her kids after having already signed them away, even reporting the Pences to the local CPS. She said that she didn't agree with how he was raising the kids or their lifestyle, which wasn't really a CPS-worthy complaint and wasn't taken seriously in the end. Either way, the Pences were unhappy, with Christopher being particularly offended. The whole legal route wasn't working for Christopher any longer. While reading about Edward Snowden, he first heard about the dark web when learning about how he had hidden his activity from the NSA. Christopher began to learn more and more about the dark web, although he wasn't really learning about it from the most reputable of sources. Despite being good with computers and seemingly pretty intelligent, Christopher was oddly naive. Dark web hitmen have become a fairly common urban legend over the years. It's said that you can buy anything on the dark web, anything from drugs to weaponry to murder for hire. While there's plenty of evidence for the first two being true, there isn't much evidence that the hitmen have ever been real. More often than not, by attempting to hire one, you're either handing your information over to the FBI to be arrested, or paying money to a con man who will never carry out your request. Christopher hadn't really thought of this, assuming that the services were real. Christopher opened up his dark web browser and came across a search engine. There he started searching for assassins, eventually coming across a website called the Sinaloa Cartel Marketplace. This was a website that claimed to have been owned by the Mexican Mafia and promised the services of reputable, safe, and powerful gang members. They assured viewers that they didn't require any identifiable info from their users, only a payment. Christopher decided to hit them up, creating a username consisting of only letters and numbers. He jovially messaged the website, saying, "Good day, admin. I have a couple targets, husband and wife, that I am needing removed. However, it is known that they and I don't quite see eye to eye on something. I am a couple days away from submitting the job as an accident. But before I do, I was wondering, in your experience, even if it is an obvious accident, what kind of investigation will be run against me, knowing that we are not on the best of terms?" Across the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere in a small village in Romania, a couple of scammers received Christopher's message and saw dollar signs in their eyes. They were very happy to answer his questions and hopefully take his money. Chris, seeing that it was all a bit pricey, asked if he could get a discount as his two targets lived at the same address. He then questioned if they could keep the children in the house safe, saying, "I am really trying to avoid them from being hurt. I'm wondering if a mugging gone wrong might be an option. Or maybe you have another suggestion. One of the children is 13 or so, but slow, so maybe his testimony could help avoid scrutiny/investigation. Christopher, seemingly satisfied with the answers he received, began transferring money into a Bitcoin wallet, and after some thinking, ordered a hit on Christina and her husband. He entered their address into the website, showing photos of the couple that they had taken from a baby book. In the end, he paid $16,000 for the hit on the couple. A few days later, Christopher tried to cancel the hit and get his money back, but then once again decided to proceed after all. The Romanian scammers never intended to follow up on this. After all, they already got their money, so they were happy. They had been scamming people like this for years and years and never actually followed up on any of the hits. I mean, after all, why would they? They already got the money. In the end, what was Christopher really going to do? Complain to the police that his illegal hired assassins had failed to kill their target? They really felt that they were pretty much in the clear on this one. After a while, this dark web website had its information leaked by a British hacker. This hacker, a man named Chris Monteiro, would often take the information from these websites and send them to different governments and authorities. One of these leaks was none other than the information provided by Christopher Pence. It wasn't long before this tip hit the FBI back in the United States, who paid a visit to Christina, saying that someone was attempting to kill her. She was in disbelief. On October 27th of 2021, Christopher Pence woke up at 6 a.m. as usual. He went through the house, waking up his children and preparing them for Bible study. Soon after, there was a loud bang on the front door as the entire home was flooded by lights from police vehicles. 16 different armed feds showed up to the home as agents split up to search the entire property. Christopher opened the front door to a riot shield in his face and a dozen officers holding assault rifles. It seemed that Christopher really didn't understand why the FBI had just brought hell down upon his home. He agreed to go out to speak to the lead agent in a car parked in the driveway. As a recorder was flipped on, Chris opened with, "I'd love to know what's going on." Chris was grilled about his life, his job, his marriage, his home, everything to get him comfortable and conversational. Christopher was more than happy to talk about the adoption, asking if they wanted the long story or the short version. They asked for the long one, after which Christopher told them the whole story. He then happily handed over his phones, tablets, computers, and all of his passwords. However, even if he had already covered his tracks, the FBI already had a mountain of evidence against him. They looked at him and asked him, "What got you to the point where you felt like you needed to have them killed?" Christopher started to cry and responded with, "On more than one occasion, the children have been abused, through discipline, through the birth parents." As Christopher tried not to sob, the agent asked him, "And you decide that you just can't stand by any longer?" To which he responded, "Yeah." The agents, acting as if they understood in order to facilitate an easy conversation, told him, "So we know that you were on the Murder for Hire website, okay? I understand why, after talking to you." Satisfied that they had gotten their confession, the FBI was all set to leave. Even still, Christopher told them, "Thank you for doing what you're doing," being oddly polite given the situation. Christopher then looked at the agents and asked, "Have I ruined my life?" They then simply arrested him. When asked if he wanted anything from the home to take with him, he said, "I'd like a time machine if you have it."
What the fuck?
It goes without saying that the community was pretty shocked at Christopher's arrest and the allegations against him. Shortly after it all went down, Christopher's sister, April, set up a GoFundMe page for Michelle, hoping to pay for the inevitable upcoming expenses. She described the family as happy and loving, saying that, "Christopher has always been the solid provider. My sister-in-law does not work as she homeschools their kids." She admitted that what had been done was a terrible crime, but said that it didn't involve any harm towards his children, his wife, and didn't involve any infidelity. She ended by saying, "The hard part is they have no money to pay the mortgage, to buy food, utilities, put gas in the car, etc. They will most likely lose their family home." It wasn't too long before the GoFundMe page was taken down. Christopher's day in court was slowly coming up as the FBI investigated the case. Since Christopher's arrest, Michelle cut all contact with Christina abruptly and permanently. The only time Christina would see the kids after that was sitting with Michelle in court, supposedly supporting the man who had attempted to have her killed. The judge, David Hurd, said that he was a little bit disturbed by how this case had played out in comparison to other murder-for-hire schemes he had seen. He said, "Each one involved a defendant who was a longtime criminal, who had a bad record, and it was not particularly surprising that he or she would hire somebody to kill others.
Bro, what the fuck?
This case is different. It's a very difficult case." Christopher decided to just go ahead and plead
You had
guilty.
one job,
He admitted
Fox.
that from July to August of 2021, he had used his home computer to access the dark web and attempted to arrange a contract killing. He admitted that he paid $16,000 in Bitcoin to kill both Christina and her husband at their home in Hoosick Falls. He gave all of the details about providing their pictures as well as how he requested the murder to be carried out. Christopher has remained in custody ever since his arrest, waiting to hear his inevitable sentencing. He feared that it was going to be pretty heavy, but there's no doubt he hoped to lower it as much as he could. Christina has said that she wants to rebuild her bond with her kids, and if she can, fix things with Michelle. She told the media, "We're trying to restore relationships. His wife has been willing to talk to my mom, so it's a step in the right direction." While she refused to tell the media why she had given up her kids, she said that she did hope to see them again. She said, "It's a very sensitive situation. We have not had contact with our children for 2.5 years. So we are praying that the mother, who we don't believe was involved in the plot at all, would be willing to restore contact with us, but so far she's unwilling until he returns home." While Christopher sits in custody, Michelle has been caring for all of the kids herself. She's been, frankly, too busy to speak up with the media. Some of the older kids have found work at a small factory in town, hoping to help out with some expenses. What she has said on Facebook is, "For now, the plan is to continue homeschooling. For now, the plan is to keep things as stable as possible. For now, the plan is to take the next step in faith and accept the grace God gives us at each turn." Christopher Pence, now 43 years old, was sentenced in 2024 to 7 years in prison for what he did. If he gets time served and then further lowers the sentence with good behavior, he may be out within the next few years. It's speculated that his release will likely be in 2028. However, he is also ordered to serve 3 years of supervised release after his sentence ends.
Are you gonna mark it?
Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Just recently, I've started up a podcast with 4 of my friends called the NBR Podcast. If you like this channel, you might find that one interesting too. I've also opened up a merch store, so if you want to get your hands on some channel t-shirts, go ahead and check that out. Go ahead and follow me on social media if you feel like it, and I really appreciate when people follow me on Patreon. There you can get videos early, ad-free, and uncensored. Channel memberships are back up too, and you can get all the same benefits there as well. Once again, this has been your host Kyle. Thank you, and good night.
I'll look up something real quick while we do this real quick. Hold on. Let me just duplicate this.
Says yes, she's a lolcow, and he said he knew that you had the lolcow gene after saying that he agreed that you're a lolcow.
Oh, right, because I asked, I was like, literally, like, would you say she's a lolcow?
You are such a blatant fucking liar. Like, you clearly watched the clip. If you pull out lolcow gene, but you're gonna ignore the part where he called you a lolcow. You're doing the 0%, 15% thing that they talked about. It's actually insane.
Happening.
We'll see how she responds to that. Give me a second. I'll maybe go look for that timestamp really quickly. Should I pipe the 75 NFT Trump bundle or the 250? Should I pipe the 75 NFT Trump bundle or the 250? Should I pipe the 75 NFT Trump?
Is this live right now? What is the point of this?
Okay. I gotta go find this Nicholas Derio clip now, guys.
What?
Give me a second. Oh, was it? It was after Tree left, right? Oh, nice.
Is this old?
You can kind of bully people for everything but your channel. I can typically bully YouTube to get it back.
Okay, hold on. 1 sec. It should mostly be just the, like, hey, it was a mistake.
If you're getting into the weeds of it, saying, like, my editor uploaded a video, you've already lost. Just keep...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Nicholas gave me advice for how to get the channel back. Put in the picture. So, like, it feels like if I could just oh, it's being used in my video.
It's the one that I use like once a week.
Do you have like any takes from watching the Queenman coverage? Kelly, if you've got a timestamp for this, could you throw that in your messages in your Discord so that I can see it pop up here? Thank you.
What is happening? Okay, I don't care.
I didn't see the Queenman coverage.
Watch this right now. Back to what I was doing. Okay, hold on. Okay. Videos. Alright, let's just go here. Let's keep going. Sorry, give me a second. I'll be right there. Okay, cool. Cool.
When a star student became addicted to substances and stabbed her boyfriend, many wondered what kind of discipline she would face. But people were outraged when they later saw that the judge took a strange liking to her.
Dude, she fucked the judge, didn't she? Makes sense. Checks out.
I've covered a few cases on this channel where people are considered to be too rich for prison or they use their money to get out of it somehow. While you could argue that this case definitely has a hefty dose of that, this is the only time I've ever heard someone be called too bright for jail. The subject of today's story is a woman named Lavinia Woodward, a woman in the UK who came from a pretty nice upbringing. She grew up living with her mom in a £1 million villa in the Italian village of Sirtori, where she attended the nearby British School of Milan, where the courses can cost as much as £16,000 a year. Eventually, upon graduating in 2011, it came time to go off to get some higher education somewhere else. Lavinia wanted to get into medicine, specifically with a goal to cure heart disease. Given how smart she was, nobody doubted that she would have some sort of success in the field. She got into Oxford in the UK, where she went into studying medicine. In her pre-clinical test that all of the Oxford medical students take in their third year, she scored at the top of the entire class. It wasn't too long before she had her name appearing in articles published in various medical journals, such as the Annals of Thoracic Surgery, Hypertension, and the Journal of Physiology. All the while, Lavinia posted pictures on Facebook showing her wealthy, seemingly pretty happy life. She had pictures in designer outfits, hopping onto private jets, chilling out on yachts, and more. In one post, she wrote, "The best things in life are free. The second best things are very, very expensive." It seemed to the people around her that Lavinia didn't really do anything beyond sit in her room and study, though. While she had friends that she would talk to in class, people didn't really see her hanging out with anyone outside of school. She was called an introvert, with those around her saying that she mainly shut herself off into her room and studied. After living this lifestyle at the university for so long, it's clear that something eventually made her snap. Lavinia began drinking to an excess and got herself hooked on some hard drugs like cocaine and MDMA. Her friends on social media noticed that she was acting very strange, with one saying, "After she went to Oxford, she turned weird. She became all dark and gothic, and it was obvious she was into drugs." She posted naked pictures of herself on Facebook, which was completely out of character for the girl I went to school with. Lavinia, really tossing out the good girl image, started posting pictures in tight-fitting, shiny, black, alternative-looking outfits, looking seductively into the camera. Her friends and family were really in for a shock when she started posting photos of herself onto her Facebook wall completely nude. She had gone to an event at the school's LGBTQ society where a bunch of students got naked and posed together, for one reason or another. In the photo, Lavinia was seen sitting on a male student's lap with what looked like red handprints on her thighs and butt. Rumors began to spread that Lavinia was hooked on cocaine and in and out of rehab as she told people at school things about herself that many took as shocking. She told a friend at school that she was, quote, into some very kinky stuff, saying that she was into BDSM and had become quite a regular on the local kink scene. She bought herself a collection of expensive underwear, and it became somewhat of a fetish for her to wear long fur coats with nothing but this underwear underneath. She went on to attend the Piers Gaveston Society Bash, a huge gathering where hundreds of the more wild Oxford students go to party. She bragged to friends about spending the whole night in what they called the orgy tent, which doesn't really need much explanation. By now, Lavinia had become a regular at most party scenes that you could imagine, everything from simple dress-up parties to romps at nightclubs and gay bars. Now, 24 years old, Lavinia went off to get herself a local boyfriend, a fellow student from Oxford. She wasn't fully honest with this boy, jumping through all sorts of hoops to hide her pesky cocaine and MDMA habits from him. She really crossed the line when she started to blame all of her symptoms on illness, even going as far as faking cancer to this boyfriend. A mutual friend of the two later spoke out and said, Lavinia told him she had cancer and was going to die, and that just turned out to be a cover for the drugs. She's a really smart medical student. She said it explained the volatile behavior and was making her lose weight. He took huge amounts of time off uni to be with her. Lavinia didn't only suffer from some health problems due to her drug habit, but she was also getting more and more violent over time as well, with that same friend saying, lots of people are really that scared of her. Eventually, seeing that things didn't really add up, this boyfriend confronted a doctor and asked about the cancer. He was devastated to hear that she didn't even have cancer in the first place. Lavinia told him that she actually came up with a whole charade to hide mental health problems that she was ashamed of. And somehow, this guy still decided to stay with her. However, this didn't last for too long. Eventually, she jumped on this guy and strangled him into unconsciousness as he was afraid to fight back, not wanting to look like the aggressor. After this, and seeing how out of control her drug binges really were, this boyfriend decided to leave. That gave Lavinia the opportunity to seek out her next victim. Lavinia decided to hop onto Tinder and give it a try. Being the looker she was and having the status she did, it didn't take too long for her to rack up a whole slew of matches. One of these matches was a guy named Thomas Fairclaw, a man taking classes at Cambridge who was around her age. It was only a matter of time before Lavinia's drug habit started to rear its ugly head once again, and Thomas got to experience it firsthand. This would happen twice within 1 month, with her facing charges for assaulting him on both November 25th and December 12th of 2016. Regardless, though, Thomas decided to keep seeing her. Both of the pair were referred to as needy, with they themselves preferring to say that they were desperately in love. They continued dating for months until September 30th of 2017, when it would all really hit the fan. Thomas and Lavinia were getting it on one night when it slipped to Thomas that Lavinia had been drinking again. Given that, after the previous assault, she shouldn't really have been drinking or doing drugs, Thomas threatened to get a hold of her mother on Skype and tell her that she needs to give rehab another shot. Lavinia did not take this very well. She pushed the laptop away from Thomas and punched him in the face. Thomas, completely sober himself, decided to call the police. The operator could hear him saying, "I think my girlfriend has taken a lot of drugs," as she continued to beat him. Lavinia took out a bread knife and started swinging it around, cutting Thomas across his fingers and legs as he tried to stop her. She then lifted up the knife and plunged it down into his leg. While he panicked, she threw the laptop at him. Then she threw a glass and a jar at him as well for good measure. Then, in a completely erratic meltdown, she took the knife and cut herself with it as well.
Oh, it is quiet.
Shortly after, the police showed up and Lavinia was arrested. She was thrown into a...
Hold on, let me put my audio down a little bit. Sorry.
a holding cell where supposedly
is that better?
Tried to end her life that night. This was prevented, and eventually she got out on bail. While she was out on bail, she got fired from her job after a customer recognized her from seeing her face in the news. This was when she was taken back to rehab again at the suggestion of her mother, spending a good month there. Afterwards, she was taken back to her mom's villa where she enjoyed the rich life once more, this time free from the burdens of school and supposedly from drugs as well. She was spotted carrying around a 1,000-pound Chanel bag, having fun around town shopping and getting her hair done. Meanwhile, the higher-ups at Christ Church, Oxford were so worried about what kind of impact that the arrest of their star student might have on the rest of the college that they started frantically emailing students not to worry. They told them that counseling would be available if needed. When it came time to go to court, the judge, Ian Pringle, took a liking to Lavinia immediately. She was charged with unlawful wounding with intent, but the judge wasn't too keen on giving her any sort of sentence. In fact, he gushed about her potential and spoke of how bright she was. While this charge would normally result in jail time, the judge debated on not sending her to jail at all whatsoever. In fact, he delayed the sentencing for months while he tried to find out what to do with her. He told the courts, "It seems to me that if this was a one-off, a complete one-off, to prevent this extraordinarily able young lady from not following her long-held desire to enter the profession she wishes to, would be a sentence which would be too severe." He then spoke to Lavinia, who wasn't at court due to being in Italy with her mother, saying, "What you did will never, I know, leave you, but it was pretty awful, and normally it would attract a custodial sentence, whether it is immediate or suspended." It was noted that Lavinia had assaulted Thomas twice in the past, and both she and her lawyers had hidden this from the courts. When this came out, it was stated that these charges would not be hidden and that they were to remain on file. Even so, they didn't really do anything to change the judge's outlook. He spoke of having pity for Lavinia, saying that she did have a problem with drinking and drugs, but said that there were other mitigating factors. He mainly blamed her troubled life and some abuse from an ex-boyfriend that he didn't go into too much detail about. It was found that her school would even allow her to return after a few months because, as they put it, she is that bright.
That's crazy.
Speaking of how her articles had already been published in medical journals. However, the defense did say that Lavinia's dream of becoming a surgeon would now be nearly impossible because her conviction would need to be disclosed. After the hearing, it goes without saying that people weren't very happy. One of these people was a guy named Mark Brooks, the chairman for the Mankind Initiative, an organization that helps male victims of domestic abuse. He said that the judge taking this stance would only make it even harder for male victims to come forward, seeing that they wouldn't be taken seriously. He said, "The judge's comments are completely unacceptable and out of touch. This is a clear case of severe domestic abuse against a man, and the focus and sympathy should be with him. The judge seems to think that domestic abuse, when it is committed by a woman against a man, is not as serious as it rightly is when it is the other way around. This is wrong. It only serves to reinforce society's continuing empathy gap between male and female victims, and the message that the judge sends is that this is right. It also makes it harder for men to come forward and get help because many fear not being taken seriously when they do, just because they are a man. This does nothing to change that view." Before Lavinia's sentencing, she was given a restraining order, ordered to stay off of drugs, and forbidden from reoffending, risking a much harsher sentence if she did. For the time being, all she really had to do was wait. To hear the final verdict, Lavinia would have to come back out to England to attend court in person. She showed up looking fashionable in a black coat with her hair done up nicely, being photographed and caught on video as she showed up to court. Thomas Fairclough didn't attend the hearing, hoping to distance himself from the whole ordeal. Eventually, it came time for the sentencing, and the judge had not changed his stance one bit. He was still determined to let Lavinia walk free with as little ramifications as possible. He said that she was old enough and intelligent enough to realize that her drug habit, which he called overindulgence, would influence her behavior. But he pointed out that she had no prior jail time under her belt. This time, with Lavinia being in court in person, he told her, "I find that you were genuinely remorseful following this event, and although it is against your bail conditions, you contacted your partner to fully confess your guilt and deep sorrow at what had happened. While you are a highly intelligent individual, you had an immaturity about you which is not commensurate for someone of your age." He blamed her drinking and drugs on a very damaging previous relationship, seemingly taking the blame off of her entirely. He instead pointed out what he called her strong and unwavering determination when it came to going to rehab and ridding herself of an eating disorder. Lavinia's defense agreed, saying that she indeed worked hard on rehab while out on bail, but noted that she had given up on returning to Oxford, at least for the time being, citing the bad publicity. He said that she would consider getting a PhD abroad or searching for another university locally. He lamented that it was unfair that she couldn't even go clubbing anymore because she was too recognizable. He said, "She has effectively been in custody for 4 weeks. She has been drug tested every week," speaking of the rehab. The college dean, Professor Martin Percy, got on defense, saying, "We are concerned for the welfare of all our students, and it is clearly a matter of regret and sadness when any young person blights a promising career by committing a crime." Miss Woodward is not currently studying at Oxford, having voluntarily suspended her medical studies. The question of her future will now be decided by the university, which has procedures in place when a student is the subject of a criminal conviction. Finally, the judge handed down Lavinia's sentence. She was given a 10-month suspended sentence for 18 months, meaning that she would receive no jail time if she didn't reoffend within those 18 months for the stabbing of her boyfriend. Her charges were also downgraded from unlawful wounding with intent to without intent. With tears in her eyes, Lavinia mouthed thank you to the judge before leaving the courtroom immediately, leaving the building as quickly as possible. Regardless of everything that happened, Oxford wanted her back. They saw her as someone that was worth the risk to keep around. After all, they felt that she might end up winning a Nobel Prize one day, which would undoubtedly look pretty good on the school. They did say that she would have to face some sort of disciplinary procedure upon her return, but Lavinia seemed to refuse to come back until that stipulation was dropped. The judge's leniency on this case sparked outrage, to put it lightly. Mark Brooks was particularly outraged. Within only a short time, many complaints were filed against the judge, and a legal watchdog stated that they would be examining the judge's conduct, something confirmed by the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office themselves. People began to compare Lavinia's sentence with those of criminals who had committed very similar crimes near the area around the same time frame and pointed out the differences in the sentencing. For instance, in October of 2013, a man named Christopher Eady punched his victim in the face and only threatened him with a knife at a party. Even after writing a formal apology, he was sentenced to 21 months in prison. Another man, 27-year-old Fenton Burke, kicked a woman in the face in July of 2016. For this, he was given 6 years in prison, with the courts even stating, "Domestic offenses will not be tolerated in our communities." One more man, a man named Peter Edwards, was sentenced to 4 years and 3 months in jail after a very similar assault to Lavinia's, both striking and stabbing his partner very recently before her sentencing. It wasn't only men, though. A woman named Michaela Bruth was 19 years old when she was sentenced to prison for committing grievous bodily harm with intent after she kicked a woman in a nightclub. She didn't have the same home life as Lavinia, being raised by a couple of drug addicts and not having any higher education under her belt, which she feels led to her not receiving the same benefits. She said that it was a sign of how unfair and unequal the justice system really is, stating, "I'm not often shocked by what happens in the justice system, but this one really hit home. This lady picked up a knife and stabbed someone, yet her charge is one down from mine. Hers was causing grievous bodily harm without intent, while mine was with intent. Are you not intending to cause an injury when you pick up a knife and stab someone?" Even after getting off so lightly, Lavinia still wasn't content. She and her lawyers decided to try and get her suspended sentence reduced to a mere fine or conditional discharge, saying that the whole ordeal was really impacting her ability to find work. Her first appeal failed, so she tried again a second time. She failed this time as well. Unhappy with these results, she decided to give up on going back to Oxford entirely until her suspended sentence was over, putting off the disciplinary action as long as possible. In the meantime, Lavinia started dating a man named Philip Kagalovsky, the son of Konstantin Kagalovsky. He was none other than an extremely rich Russian oligarch who lived in a £60 million mansion in London. He was said to have been exiled from Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union, being worth £1.2 billion after making a fortune in oil and banking. It was said that Lavinia and Philip opened up and ran a card printing business together in West London with this money. Lavinia went on to change her name on Facebook, with her friends saying that she was hoping everything would blow over and that people would eventually forget about her crime so that she could go back to school as normal. Meanwhile, she would continue to live with her rich boyfriend in their £1 million apartment together. Since then, she's been photographed taking jets all over the world and at fancy restaurants in Paris.
Jesus Christ.
Her friend told the news media, "She thinks this will all blow over and she can get back to being a doctor. She's so clever in some ways, it would be a good thing. But no one wants to be treated by someone who can't control their temper." Lavinia is convinced this will all just get forgotten. Lavinia and her boyfriend are having a fab time in London. They're a happy couple and they have everything anyone could ever want. It's a lifestyle she always hoped for. There's still no official verdict on whether she can be a doctor or not. After her suspended sentence has passed, she expects nobody will have a choice but to let her get back into medicine. It's her dream and she won't let it go. Nothing but medicine is worth her precious attention. Give it long enough, she hopes, apologize enough, and she'll gradually be let back into the fold. Lavinia has been accused of trying to set the terms as to when and how she will return to Oxford. She believes that her potential alone is enough to give her all of the bargaining power, feeling that Oxford will eventually drop their threats of disciplinary action if she makes it clear that she might not come back. However, as the years go on, it seems less and less likely that she's ever going to return. While some say that she has since broken up with her Russian boyfriend, that much is unclear. What is clear is from her own social media, like LinkedIn. This is where she states that, after the crime, she got a job being a business development manager in a digital out-of-home advertising agency. Then she worked as a startup consultant with a company called Square Roots Limited. It seems that now, though, she really did start working with medicine once more in the end, in the pharma field to be specific. She wrote on social media, "I'm happy to share that I'm starting a new position as Senior Product Development Producer at Beacon," where it seems that she has been working for almost 2 years as of the writing of this episode. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Just recently, I've started up a podcast with 4 of my friends called the NBR Podcast. If you like this channel, you might find that one interesting too. Just recently, I've set up a merch store as well, so if you're interested in getting some channel t-shirts, go ahead and check it out. I also really appreciate when people follow me on social media. I appreciate it even more when people follow me on Patreon. There you can get videos early, ad-free, and uncensored. Channel memberships are back up too, where you can get all the same benefits as well. Once again, this has been your host Kyle. Thank you, and good night.
Alright.
Anything interesting?
Cleeman doing his fake nice thing again. Pretending he's a nice guy in the chat. Fake nice again.
You know what's really annoying? You know what is actually annoying? Me making comments about narcissistic white women make up health issues to get out of criticism. The fact that she has Google Docs on like her health shit, and she could have just linked it to me and convinced me that she actually does have health issues. That's fucked up. She could have
yeah,
just actually proven me wrong.
Well, like, and I don't know. That's maybe I just didn't. I don't know what happened when I didn't correct it. To tell you the truth, I've heard the clips before. One of them, other people are talking. The other one is like I do this when other people are talking. I will occasionally open up my Discord and I will start dealing with like messages and stuff to make sure I'm not missing any like big content, right? So like this will happen where somebody will start talking and they start carrying the conversation, and I'll kind of check out for a second. I'll go check my Discord and do a couple other things, right? So that's probably what happened there.
I think that would have been even funnier. You chime in like, well, hold on, Terry. She's white, but we can't be sure if she's narcissistic. We can't be sure. They're probably like she does have health issues. God, you are actually like such a fucking simp.
Okay, we'll keep going. I don't know if send some context to Queen here, okay? 1 second. I don't know how you manage to pull off when you don't have a financial incentive to be more terminally online than streamers. That's actually crazy. Like, like not even in DC. At least if you're in DC and like,
I'm done.
Like, you know what? Actually, I don't even want to make fun of terminally online people. If you're hanging out with your friends and you're having a good time, that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
My back is
like,
killing me.
Doing
I
something
can't
with
do it
friends. I played
anymore.
video games when I was.
I want to go to bed. So, much love, peace and love. I'm going to sleep. All the other good shit. What else we got here?